tell you that little story, which I was going to tell you earlier, and it concerns the Field Marshal Montgomery, when we were talking about the rain coming down. And I remember judging them at a championship a couple of years ago, and they came up to the line and the heavens opened, and it rained and it rained and it rained right through the performance. You could actually watch the rainwater going right down the chanters, over the fingers, and you know something? They never put a note wrong.
Really?
And to me, that was the sign of a real professionally good band.
Yeah.
And they went on to win that championship that day.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a measure of just how different they are from a lot of the other competitors, a lot of the other bands.
They really are cut
above. They're just that little cut above at the moment. And this is the band they're all chasing.
Yeah.
We spoke earlier about Scottish Power. Scottish Power at last year's World Championships came in third, and they were extremely pleased to do that. Second on that day was the Simon Fraser University, which George mentioned earlier, from British Columbia in Canada. And even Terry Lee, the pipe major, when he was announced as second, he threw his fist in the air, because he knew, to him, that was as good as getting first, because he had to beat Field Marshal, which he wasn't going to do that day. They were just such an outstanding band on the day, and they've continued to do that ever since.
What do you think it is about them that makes them so special? What have they got that the other bands are striving to achieve?
Individually, they're all very good players. They have got a very good man at the top in Richard Parks. Richard knows exactly what he wants. He knows how to get the sound from the band. That's important too, although personally I've never put a lot of emphasis on sound. I would probably only bring sound into it if I had to make a decision at the end of the day between a placing. But a lot of the bands now have such good sounds. Not all the same, but they all have their own merits. And it can be just a particular preference with the individual. As I say, from my point of view, I don't place too much cognizance on the actual sound, as long as it's not bad and it's acceptable. That's fine. But they've got a good drum corps here. The ensemble quality of the band is absolutely sticking out. The tunes that they play all seem to be very appealing. And as I say, this is the band everybody has come here to beat today.
Okay, well, here they are. Let's hear them.
And on to draw the number one set, the Helen Redding, Claire Drummond and Kitty Moran.
crowd are certainly pleased with that anyway.
That was just the complete pipe band performance. It was just from start to finish. Tempos were excellent. Intro was just so good. Just great finger work. You could not fault anything on there at all. Just a very good performance.
Okay, that was Field Marshal Montgomery. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, I'll echo George's remarks. The complete performance.
Yeah.
It's just that little cut above the rest, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they just don't waver at all. They never falter. It's very difficult for an adjudicator to go down there and try and pick holes in that. There are no holes to pick.
Yeah.
You know, it is a complete performance. Drummers again, they did really well. Good backing to the pipers. Drums, tenor drums, bass drum. Yeah, in fact, I noticed that one of the tenor drummers there, he used to be the bass player with the Seven Towers band, and I always rated him as an excellent. He's one of the best bass drum players that I've ever come across. And then I notice he's not playing bass drum; he's playing tenor drum. Okay. That's the sort of level of the guys you've got in the Field Marshal Montgomery pipe band. And I think Richard and Keith, the leading drummer, will be well pleased with that today. It's just that's what they've came here to do. They've strived for it. They've worked hard for it, and they've achieved it again.
Yeah, and they had a great season last year too, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah. Clean sweep last year of all the major championships. I don't think they lost a competition anywhere last year, even in the minor competitions.
Yeah.
They certainly won the first
five major Grand Slams in a row.
That's right, yeah. And they've won the first two majors this year so far. Well, there's more bands to come, but that stands a good chance of perhaps getting through. But we are not the adjudicators today.
We are not, and there's still 3 more bands to go today as well.
That's right, and the 4 guys down there on the park listening to the bands, they're the guys that will make up their own minds, and they will be hearing things that we are not hearing, and they're getting a different interpretation of the performance. We're getting the overall thing coming up through here. They're looking at their individual parts of the band to assess, and it will be good to hear what's still to come.
Okay, well here is what's still to come approaching the line, and this is Strathclyde Police with Duncan Nicholson, their pipe major, and they were one of the first pipe bands to be formed outside the ranks of the British Army, I believe.
That's correct, and it wasn't Strathclyde Police then, it was actually Govan Police in Glasgow. Govan is a district in Glasgow, and they were formed out of the public purse actually, not from the police force. So in a sense they could be termed as a civilian band, but then they then became City of Glasgow Police and then Strathclyde Police. Richard Parks with Field Marshal Montgomery has just broken a record that Strathclyde held for many years. It was 6 World Championships in a row, and Richard with Field Marshal Montgomery has just broken that record. And when this band was in its heyday, they were the Field Marshal Montgomery.
Right.
In their time.
Okay, interesting. So let's hear them.
Yes, it was a good steady performance. Their tempos just stayed there. You know, it didn't budge. Sometimes just thinking that we're just maybe a wee bit overcautious, you know, at times. But still a good performance, and I think they could be on the prize list today.
Okay, yeah, it certainly pleased the crowd. Anyway, it was a good cheer at the end there, yeah. And I think their former pipe major is here today as an adjudicator, isn't that right?
That's correct, yes. And Ian McClellan was the pipe major who took them through their 6 in a row World Championships a few years back. That performance there, I liked the march and I quite liked the reel. I wasn't enamoured with the Strathclyde. It seemed to lack any sort of rhythmic content, if you like. They just seemed to play through it. Could have been phrased better, could have been executed better, and that was the worst part of the performance. George and I did notice on the chanters, the sound on the top hand of the chanter. George thought it was just going a bit sharp. I was inclined to think it was a little flat, and they were trying to blow it through to make it sharper.
Oh, okay.
And that it wasn't working. They weren't achieving that, so there was a bit of a sound problem there. And I don't think the weather played a problem with that. That was a basic fundamental thing.
Okay, I was going to ask you, was that a weather thing?
Yeah,
you don't think so?
No, I think that was a fundamental thing. They just didn't quite get that right. But
but it must be very difficult to tune a band before a competition, you know, and have them exactly right whenever you're in the open air and you've got all these conditions against you.
Well, generally speaking, all these top bands, all the individuals should be playing regularly enough that when they arrive in the competition park, all the individuals' instruments should be going very nicely to begin with, and very little work should be needed to improve on that. And it's a case of just bringing them together, minor tweaks, and stuff like that. But no, they should all be well prepared individually before they come to the competition park. And I know from experience that if you're not, you don't get to play the game that day. You're booted out onto the bench.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the next band up to the line here we have Torfickan and Bathgate. That's a West Lothian band, is that correct? From West Lothian?
That's correct. They're from West Lothian. Yep.
And they have a new look this year.
Sorry?
They have a new look this year, apparently.
Yeah. No? Yes, they do. Yeah. New tartan, isn't it? Yeah. And again, a very old established band, Strathclyde and Bathgate, had their ups and downs.
Apparently they have new drum hardware this year as well, and a lot of new players. Yeah.
Oh, I noticed in a nice mauve colour. Is that purple? I'm not sure which, but
possibly,
yeah.
So it'll be
kind of blends
interesting
in with the kilts, doesn't
to see if that makes any difference to their performance. George?
Well, I think their whole performance was just rushed all the way through, especially their march. It lacked phrasing. There was no composure in it at all. Same with their Strathclyde. The first two parts weren't too bad, but as soon as they hit the third part, it lost all composure, and the reel just went straight through. It just didn't do anything for me at all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, especially the march, because it was one of those long marches, it just went on and on and on, and I was actually beginning to switch off with it because, it was just a bit too rushed, and because of the tempo that was being played at, the musicality was lost out of it as well. The Strathclyde reel didn't do really very much. The Strathclyde just needed much more better execution levels and better expression levels to bring out the true melodies of the tune, because that is a nice tune if it's played properly. And the reel was just pretty nondescript, to be honest. But having said that, it's a band which I think it's probably the best I've heard them playing for a little while, despite what I've just said. They have improved, but they've got a long way to go yet, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, we have one more band to go this afternoon, and that is Kilson-Moore, Dysart and Dundonald, and their pipe major is Craig Canning, and they were formed in 1929, I believe. They were disbanded through the war, but then reformed again in 1945, and in 1950 they became known as Dundonald Colliery Pipe Band. Their colliery closed in 1965, but then Dysart Colliery adopted the band, and have I pronounced that all properly?
That's correct, and we have here a band which has won the World's Championship on many occasions several years ago, I may add, but and since then I've never retained that former glory. It's a band which has been around for a long time. That part of Scotland and Fife, it's renowned for a lot of good players, a lot of good pipers and good drummers, and there's quite a plethora really of them in the county of Fife, and they're maintaining their status in Grade 1. They've never been in real danger of moving down to Grade 2, although they have been at the bottom end of the grade on more than one occasion.
To talk about that for a moment or two, how long do you have to be at the bottom? I mean, is it at the end of one season you automatically go down, or do you have to be consistently at the bottom over several seasons?
I think we mentioned earlier that it was actually like football league tables, and bands can be relegated, usually about bottom two if they're not in one season, but whereas in football you're down, you're gone. Yeah. But in the pipe band world, no, they probably run for 2 seasons, perhaps 3, before thinking about being relegated. However, one of the things which the adjudicators have at their disposal is they have a sheet of paper with them, where if they think a band is not in a proper grade, if they think perhaps a Grade 1 band is not playing to Grade 1 standard, they can actually recommend on that sheet that band is looked at and perhaps up for regrading. Not immediately, but certainly. Yeah. And if, of course, at other competitions, if the same thing comes along, then there will be a real need to relook that band to possibly move down a grade. It also happens in the lower grades, where if a band is perhaps playing so well continuously throughout the season, we would recommend that they get upgraded. Sometimes they don't like it because they're maybe not going to win so many prizes in the next grade up. But,
I suppose it's easier to sometimes be top than be bottom. But
that's correct.
But surely every band aspires to be a Grade 1 band.
Yes, we've heard today 2 bands. We've heard Seven Towers from here in Northern Ireland, also Rivara, who were promoted to Grade 1 this year. Well, what it really means for them is when they were in Grade 2, they were winning everything in sight. Lots of prize money, lots of nice trophies, and now nothing. And that, unless something drastic happens and they improve to get up to that top echelon of Grade 1, there won't be too many trophies coming home.
And do you think they can do it eventually?
How long as a piece of string? It's, every band aspires to be right up there, certainly into the top 6. And if you can make the top 6 in the Grade 1 in the world, that is an achievement on its own. If even you get no more than 6th, you've gone places, you've got up there, you're amongst the big boys, and every band aspires to be that.
Okay, well, here's our last band for the afternoon approaching the line: Kilson-Moore, Dysart and Dundonald.
band are drawn the number 2 set, Hugh Kennedy, Maggie Cameron, and the brown-haired maid. Brown-haired maid.
Final comments, gentlemen?
Well, I can see what Greg was trying to do. He certainly improved this band, from last season, They've still got quite a bit to go. There are quite a few integration problems in the pipe corps, but the overall performance, I think, you know, for him today was he can be sort of quite satisfied with it, you know. But as I say, still got quite a bit to go.
Okay, and then overall this afternoon, Alan, what have you thought?
Overall, I enjoyed it. Okay, there were some substandard performances, but not too many, which was great. I didn't actually expect to hear, and you know, the standard being so good today. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I reiterate what I said earlier, that it's the Mark Strathclyde and real element of this competition which sorts out the men from the boys. A lot of these bands will come up and play really nice medleys, but give them the real heavy, difficult stuff of Mark Strathclyde and reels, and that sorts the wheat from the chaff. And I think that's what's happened today, actually. And I think the result, whatever it is, will be the right one. And so hopefully, keep our fingers crossed, the adjudicators have got it right, as they always do, and I say that, of course, because I am. Yes, I am, very much so.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. I have really enjoyed the afternoon, just chatting with you and hearing and learning from you two as well, and all your knowledge that you have, and you've made a very enjoyable afternoon, so thank you very much. And thank you for watching. If you have been watching with us, we were live at Stormont 2012 for the European Pipe Band Championships, and this programme was brought to you by ljhstv, and it was jointly sponsored by Tourism Ireland and the Ulster Scots Agency.